Welcome back, Spokane, to another episode of EvoReal Talks. I'm Matt Side.
And I'm Jessica Side.
And we're here in Spokane, Washington in February. What do you think about that, Jess?
I think that February is a great month.
You know, here's the thing.
Okay.
I do my best at the beginning of these episodes to see if I can throw you some sort of random curveball.
Yeah, that's not an interesting curveball, though. And it's February. What do you think about February?
I think it's Valentine's Day coming up. That's what I think.
That's true.
I think that
do you
we've
have
got
big
lots
plans?
of winter.
Do you have big plans for Valentine's Day?
Phil had a Zoom meeting that
do you
said
notice that he's not answering the question about Valentine's Day because he has no plans? Actually,
I have plans.
Let me say something. We, as a married couple, decided a long time ago, like our very first year of marriage, that it wasn't fair that he was responsible for every Valentine's Day and every anniversary. So we decided that it would be something that we would go back and forth on. Now,
it's your year this year.
We've been married so many years, I have no idea whose turn it is. So we do
You're
the kind
always
of...
the odd year.
You have no idea. We always tend to do this thing where we go, hey, I'm taking care of the anniversary, or I'm taking care of Valentine's Day, which I think is kind of nice. But it doesn't mean you don't have to do something nice. It just means you're not doing the big plan for where we're going and what we're doing.
I know. I tried to make a massive amount of reservations, and believe it or not, I couldn't get any.
God. You guys, I don't know why Matt is in this mood right now. I am going to talk about our featured home of the week. It is a brand new listing. It is at 3016 West Sanson, and it is $265,000, which is great.
Is it still there?
It is at this moment in time. It is still there. Stacy Sampson on our team has this one listed. It is a 5-bedroom, 2-bath home. It is 1,813 square feet, so it's not humongous, but it has...
But it has 5 bedrooms?
And it has an attached 2-car garage.
That's cool.
So you know how sometimes in the smaller homes you have a garage that was built on there, but you still have to go outside and around the back? This is not that. It actually has a door
between
into
the house.
And
okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Which I think is important to know. The schools, this is something I just added this time, is Brown, Glover, and Shadle Park. Some features of the home: it's got hardwoods upstairs. It's been newly remodeled downstairs with the LVP. Looks really nice. It has a nice bathroom down there. It has an egress window in one of the bedrooms. Backyard is fenced, vinyl windows, gas forced air. It's a very solid home, and I think people will really take to it. I believe that at this moment in time, she already has scheduled 35 showings.
Oh my goodness.
So, but just because people see a house doesn't mean that they necessarily are going to buy that house.
If you're interested
Yes.
in looking at that home, hit us up at 509-62-HOUSE or send us a message on our social media. Can I just make a comment?
Absolutely.
For those people that school districts are really important to you, there are school district maps that you can get from Spokane Public Schools. You can also reach out to us and we can link that to you because... honestly, just because a listing says that it's in a specific school district,
true.
If that school district is really important to you, you should probably double check with the actual maps of the district themselves.
Good point. I like it. And because of this listing, I decided that I would feature an area that is literally called Northwest.
Northwest Spokane.
Northwest. And let me give you the parameters for this. So this would be on the east side, Ash. On the north side, Francis.
Okay.
On the south side, Wellesley. And then all the way over to the river. Okay. And so if you were to look at that area and you kept going west, 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 you would run into, Dwight Merkel.
Oh, I was going to say the river. Didn't you already say the river?
Yeah, the river. But I'm just saying that helps people kind of to know what we're talking about.
Dwight Merkel, VA Hospital, Albi Stadium.
Yeah.
A couple of,
Don't take the wind out of my sails, hon.
Okay.
So let's just talk about the area a little bit. Now, some of this crosses over with some of the other areas of Spokane that we've done because, of course, this was a Native American important area because of the Spokane River. There was a lot of fishing and winter camping and trading that happened in that particular area. The area was full of edible roots and bulbs and berries. Now, the gridded streets and subdivisions were the things that replaced the already native trails that were already there. So we've talked about this before. Indian Trail The reason why it's called that
Right.
and why it goes a certain way is because that was a trail that was used not only by the natives, so the natives used that, and then people, traders as they moved in,
Sure.
and then the settlers as they moved in, all used the area. I thought it was kind of interesting. I actually drew myself a little map because I was reading some things and it talked about how they actually used from the Great Falls, which of course is downtown Spokane, all the way to where the Little Spokane meets the Spokane River. So that whole area was very traveled by the Native Americans. So you have to turn off that thing, Matt. Sorry, sometimes we forget to turn things off and we get little beeps and buzzes, which is exciting. So you have the Great Falls and then people moving through from there through Drumheller Springs, which we've talked about before, which is where Maple and Euclid join up. And then, to these different, so Northwest Boulevard took its way all the way to the Spokane River. Then you have Driscoll that kind of goes up there. And then you have Indian Trail. All of those things are trails that were used. I just think that's kind of fun and interesting.
I mean, it's a great, the reality is if you're in any sort of rural area, like when you're backpacking and stuff, if you find a great, well-worn game trail, you're going to take it, especially if you're bushwhacking. So if you've got native trails that people are...
to important places,
like
the river.
And why would the trails go anywhere else?
Yeah.
So it makes a ton of sense that that's where the roads would go.
And that's where the roads went. So it was interesting because there were rival streetcar companies, and one of them used the Northwest Boulevard, and one of them used Driscoll Boulevard. And if you look at them, they don't have the same start and end places, but they certainly have that kind of same direction. And those were some of because that area was growing, the neighborhood was growing. During World War II is when the U.S. Army built Baxter General Hospital, which is located between Assembly and the Fairmont Memorial Park, which right now exists south and west of Dwight Merkel, in that whole area. It was for returning veterans from World War II. It had 300 buildings and 2,001 beds. Portions of it was 200 acres, and portions of that were then became the Veterans Affairs Memorial Hospital in 1948, and Joe Albi Stadium, which was originally called the Memorial Stadium, again going along with these hospital places and the memorial for VA in 1950. So those were built right about the same time, right in the mid-century, and nearby. A rope tow operated as City Ski Acres in the 1950s. So there was like a little ski hill in that area as well. Yes.
That is so interesting.
I know. I love that kind of stuff. So then, of course, that turned into, we've already talked about it, Joe Albi Stadium and Dwight Merkel Sports Complex. And of course, Dwight Merkel, you have football, you have Junior Bloomsday, they have BMX track, they have the skate court. They have soccer fields and softball fields, and then there's a walking trail along the perimeter, which I've never walked. Have you ever been on it?
Yeah, I've been on it, but I've never walked the whole thing.
Okay.
It's usually just to try and get from one field to the other and be on the outside of where everything else is going on.
Okay, very good. And then, of course, in the area, there's also Loma Vista Park, which I'm familiar with that one because we had someone who lived across the street from there, which was a very nice park. So there, of course, as far as like what's in the area, on Francis and Wellesley, which are our north and south boundaries, you have really pretty substantial shopping centers on both sides of that. Yeah. And then this was kind of interesting, Aubrey L. White Parkway. So you're familiar with what that is, right? That is, it's the bottom, basically the bottom of Doomsday Hill, all the way past Francis, and then it joins up with the 9 Mile Falls Road, or I guess it's called 9 Mile Road. So that parkway goes all the way near the river. It was built in 1933, between 1933 and 1936.
Right, okay. That's the direction, like you can get to Riverside State Park.
Exactly.
It
follows, it's right along the river.
Golf course. It's the road along downriver.
It's all of that right along the river, all the way through, again, past Francis. And that was built between 33 and 36 by the Civilian Conservation Corps. Wow. Now, here's the deal. as you look at these names, I realize I don't actually know who all of these people are, or I didn't remember who all these people were. So I decided...
some of them you've talked about in
that
other
is correct.
episodes.
Good, Matt.
Come on.
I am so proud of you. Specifically, Aubrey L.
Yeah.
White.
Wasn't he one of the park guys?
Yes! Can I just tell you how much I love this guy right now?
Because I remember.
Valentine's Day. Okay, babe. I'll take on Valentine's Day
You
this
got
year. All right. So we did talk about him before. He moved here in 1889. And do you remember what happened in 1889? You got to remember what happened in 1889, Matt.
Big fire.
That's correct. He was about the age, he was 20 years old. He became an influential businessman. He actually, I think, moved away for a while and then came back. He became basically the parks czar, is what I'm calling him, of Spokane. No one else calls him that. That's just my special name for him.
Jessica phrase.
And he's the one who got Spokane and the Olmsted brothers together.
Right.
And his goal was to make Spokane the best park system in the United States. That was his goal. I don't know if he necessarily reached that, but he certainly did a pretty darn good job. So that's who Aubrey L. White, and why that is named after him, that parkway. Joe Albi is another one. Do you know?
No.
Okay.
I can't remember.
So Joe Albi, in short, he started there's actually a lot about him.
We might need to do it.
A little
Joe
bit
Albi
more.
episode.
Yeah, it might be kind of interesting because there's a lot more to it that I couldn't fit here. But he basically started Athletic Round Table in 1920, which was called ART.
Yeah, I remember they had a bingo hall.
Oh, really?
ART bingo hall, Athletic Roundtable bingo.
Okay,
it was
well,
one of the first places I went to play bingo when I turned 18. Because you have to be 18 to play bingo because it's gambling.
That is true.
Pretty
they say he
won like a case of oil or something.
Oh my Lord. He was 5'6" and fast-talking president for 42 years of that particular organization. His group helped to fund the stadium, and it was renamed. So the stadium, remember, was 1950, and they renamed it after him in 1962, just a few weeks before he passed away.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is something that I've seen done about other people, where right before they pass away, they try and do something before they pass away, so they know that something was named after them, which is pretty cool. And then Dwight Merkel. Dwight Merkel started as a volunteer football coach in 1966, and he served that organization, which became the SYSA, for 31 years. He not only helped to raise funds to build the complex, but he was one of the people up there picking up rocks and planting grass. Like they had to, when he became the executive director, they basically said, you need to be the executive director and stop trying to do everything. And so Dwight Merkel was named after him.
That's cool.
There you go. So there's a little bit of history on the neighborhood from our featured home.
And as far as like places to like patron, like again, like why would I want to live in this neighborhood?
Yeah.
They're like you mentioned, Francis and Wellesley both have quite a kind of shopping center commercial district. There are restaurants like in that 5 Mile area, which would be in the top. I'll say it's the northeast corner of that neighborhood is where there's several restaurants and pubs and grocery stores. And
not too far away, of course, you have things like the Flying Goat.
Yeah, which is right just a little bit south of that.
And they've got Field House? Is it Field House?
The trails.
Follow the trails.
Native
and you'll
trails to the watering hole of Flying Goat.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Bam.
All right, Matt, I know you've got some stuff for us. I'm excited to hear.
Everybody's excited because Matt's bringing the numbers.
I'm excited. Yes. Let's do it.
All right, let's do some numbers for this snapshot in time and a little bit of our history over the last 6 months. We're going to go through what we usually do, right?
Okay.
The active listings, price ranges, pending listings, those type of things. So let's start with our active listings. Are there any out there, anyone?
Yeah, right?
Holy God.
Okay, well, I don't know the number, so I'm interested to hear what the number is. Because I think the lowest we got last year was like 0.63 or something like that.
Something like that.
Okay. What are we at now?
201 active listings.
Okay.
Which is 0.27 months.
0.27 months? Is that the lowest? I mean, that's the lowest I've ever heard of.
I went into the MLS, I'm like, I had to screw something up in this search. Like,
wow.
And I even went back to some of our older shows to be like, have we been close to this before? Like, what is going on? just so you know, it is basically 8 days of inventory.
Holy moly.
Are
Now
you kidding
we
me?
also talked about the fact that it didn't mean that there weren't listings. It just meant that
Yes.
things were going really, really fast.
That
what's
is true. That's true. So we've got 929 pending transactions right now. So that's a lot of houses that are pending.
Okay.
I think you can't ignore the fact that you have 8 days of active inventory on the MLS. I get it. It's February.
Yes.
It tends to be a slow, like not a lot of people are thinking, hey, this is a great time of year to sell my house. I'm going to hold that off for later months. Yeah, right now it is because supply and demand, there is no supply and there is a lot of debate. How many? 35 showings already on that property?
Scheduled showings. Yeah.
Scheduled showings. So the point being that people think in their mind that this is a bad time of year to sell a house. The reality is that you have no competition.
Yeah.
So I get it. It doesn't mean that it's a great time for you personally, but don't wait till spring just because of spring.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get off that soapbox. But 8 days of inventory is kind of incredible. To put that into perspective, back in March, and I don't think we were doing this set of numbers in January, February of last year.
Okay.
But the first week of March, we had 903 active listings. So like 3 weeks from now, we had over 4 times that many of active listings on the MLS.
Wow. Okay.
So that's just to kind of give you some perspective. I got a couple of graphs that I printed out that we'll post up on our Facebook, but you can see in the graph, like it just through the end of the year. So even February of last year, and these are different, like the numbers are irrelevant to where the movement is. But it's under half, like fewer than half of the active listings were in December compared to February. Like it's just keeps on going down.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's funny. For some reason, my template didn't remind me to look at the days on market, so I don't even know that number.
It's low.
It is probably very low. So active price range right now, we've got a $70,000 up to a $3.9 million property. The median active list price right now is $335,000.
Wow, that jumped up.
Yeah.
I mean, again, those are, when you get snapshots in time and you're not looking at longer averages, you're going to have those anomalies up and anomalies down.
Of course. Median active list price could change every day.
Right.
Sold. So let's see. Median sold price in the last 6 months is $315,000 is the median sold.
Right. Which is
the median list over the last 6 months was 309.
Okay.
And let's just put that again into perspective. Median sold 315 back in March when I went and looked at some of those old numbers, 283.
Okay.
So that's a almost a $30,000 increase. So it's over 10%.
Yeah.
Which we know. We know our market in Spokane has gone up over 10% in the last year.
Sure has.
So those are some numbers I was absolutely blown away. And yes, just to remind us, as we talked about last year, at the very beginning of this year, we did actually have 2.5% more sales in 2020 than we had in 2019. So things are just moving quickly, and you just got to know, you got to have all your stuff lined up, your ducks in a row. Don't be scared if you're a buyer. Yeah. Just be strategic.
Yeah. So. I think we talked about 3 things that you need to be. You need to be, I can't remember all 3 of them, but you have to be persistent.
Those 3 things, Jeff?
Persistent and consistent. I do know those are 2 important things patient, right? But you can't take a break for a weekend, right? You have to be looking at those properties every day.
If you're just kind of like, if the right property comes along and I'm ready to go look at it, like you're not gonna find a house. Yeah. Not likely anyway. All right. So I was curious about some of the information and time frame that you were talking about, because I've got some interesting information that I pulled from an article from the Spokesman Review this morning. Okay. And we'll link that on our social media if you want to go actually read the article with the Spokesman. It's very well written. So let me just read this kind of front end of the article here. The developer who transformed an old industrial site near downtown Spokane into the thriving mixed-use Kendall Yards development believes he can do the same thing on a 400-acre Kaiser aluminum site north of the city limits in Meade. Jim Franks, Greenstone Corp., has purchased 300 acres of the parcel and entered into a development agreement with Kaiser.
That's cool.
There you go.
Because the reason why this is significant with what you just talked about is because the inventory being so tight is causing those numbers to go through the roof. I just wrote a newsletter about this, just talking about our own, and I've talked to other parents. Okay, I've talked to people who've got kids that are just starting to go to college, and the concern of, are they going to be able to buy a house in Spokane by the time they're ready? And that has been a concern for a lot of us, right? And so I know for us, like, that's part of our investment mentality is maybe we should buy some houses right now to make it possible for our children. If it gets really, really tight, we could give them a stepping stone in some way, right? I'm not necessarily going to give them the house, but I might be able to help them into that house. And the reason I bring this up is because if we can, if some of these developers can alleviate some of the pressure that we're feeling, right, on inventory, then it's going to kind of cool the steep rise in prices.
It will for sure help. I mean, it's the absolute only reason Spokane had an increase in sales volume year over year was because of new construction. The interesting thing is we're barely back to the 2008 volume of construction. It's taken us that long after the Great Recession to get back to that point.
Wow.
And so that's a challenge. So this particular community is going to include around 1,450 residences.
Nice.
About 1.2 million square feet of commercial space. They've tentatively named it Mead Works. It's
all right.
Who knows what it'll end up being.
Because of Kaiser.
Well, because it's in the Mead Kaiser property, mm-hmm. So it's north of Mead. Mm-hmm. Some really interesting stuff though about this because Kaiser Aluminum and Kenwood. So this started out so back to what you were talking about, World mm-hmm. War II was when the federal government opened an aluminum smelter there on about 180 acres of land. And then in 1946, Kaiser Aluminum and Chemical Corporation purchased the plant. And then about a decade later, they bought the 400 acres just to the north of the plant.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So interestingly, they didn't do much with that 400 acres other than run their heavily contaminated stormwater across it.
Wonderful.
From the smelter site across the land on its way to Dead Man Creek.
Okay.
Yay, let's take all of our toxic chemicals and dump it in the creek. Can I just, like, for those people that I've been on my soapbox about regulations before, but could you just stop complaining about regulations because people will take their chemicals and dump the crap in the creek.
Yeah.
They just will.
Yeah.
En route, however, the stormwater collected in a pair of settling ponds located near the center of the property. What settled in those ponds were, to a large degree, carcinogenic toxins known as PCBs.
Wow.
This is a quote that just blew me away. There were enough PCBs in those ponds to contaminate a lake the size of Lake Coeur d'Alene 30 times over.
Oh my Lord.
Right? What in the... Anyway.
He's not happy about this. I mean, I'm not, but I can feel his, like, righteous indignation.
So anyway, the EPA came in about a year ago and said, hey, Kaiser, this is critical. You got to clean this crap up.
Wow. Just
a year ago? Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm
probably blowing out the mic right now.
Yeah, you need to chill out just a little bit.
Chill it down.
No, what I'm trying to figure out is, so you're telling me that they were doing this since mid-century, and then just now, 70 years later, we're telling them that they have to clean it up?
That's what it says.
Okay.
That's what it says.
Fairly interesting.
So...
better late than never?
Maybe, yeah. All right, so time critical was in quotes. This past summer, so here's the quote. This past summer, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency began working with Kaiser on a, quote, time critical cleanup of the ponds. It was a daunting job.
Yeah.
Here's another great quote. Crews excavating sediment from the main lower pond discovered a potential complicating issue. A handful of holes in the liner designed to contain the toxins.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Wait, aren't we all drinking water out of an aquifer that is underneath us?
I don't think it goes that far north.
Okay. That's probably...
I'm pretty sure it doesn't. It goes through the valley. It's okay, but back to Matt's soapbox. Mm-hmm. Like, this is why we have to pay attention to what we're building in the valley, in the Rathdrum Valley, and all that is where the aquifer goes.
Yeah.
Like, it comes from Canada. Got to be good friends with our neighbors because what they dump up there comes down to us too. So anyway, okay, sorry.
It's okay. No, I think this is all part of being in a community, right?
It is all part of being in a community.
Mm-hmm.
So, interestingly,
Okay.
part of Greenstone's tackling of this, they're obviously well aware of all the stuff that's going on in here. The other thing is, too, this 400-acre parcel, it just keeps getting better, Jessica, also lies just north of a superfund site that is home to a highly toxic plume of cyanide pollution that is the subject of an ongoing multi-million-dollar cleanup plan.
Holy moly. And they want to take this on? Are they? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean,
My guess is they're
Greenstone,
going to get some government help.
probably.
I
They're
don't know.
probably working. I mean, Kaiser's the one that has to deal with it. I'm sure it's part of whatever they're negotiating is
Okay.
to take it on. And they're... Anyway. So where is this project? Just to kind of give people kind of the boundaries of where this all is. To give you a starting point, it is the new Costco north of Spokane.
Yep.
The development will surround it on 3 sides. So Highway 2 kind of goes in the front of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got Highway 2 on one part of it. You've got the new Highway 395 North-South Freeway that they've built on the east side of it. And then Farwell at the top and Hawthorne at the bottom. So
Okay.
those are kind of your like square, if you will, or at least the 4 edges of the development. The really cool thing, so Frank is describing the project as the first development facilitated by construction of the long-awaited interstate-style highway that some legislators are trying to fast-track our north-south freeway. It's the idea behind this is that they're designing it in such a way as to not create more traffic on our normal north-south avenues, which is Division and Maple and those type of things. Like the fact that the north-south freeway is well on its way to completion to connecting to I-90, that's going to give great access to this.
I would hope so.
They're also
Are they trying
already,
to time it with that? I mean, is that the idea?
well, here's the thing.
Okay.
They already know that they're probably not going to get the cleanup piece of it done and approved and ready to go before the end of the year. Like they're not even going to start anything in 2021.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
So as the north-south freeway is continuing to move on and grow, and it will benefit that. They're also going to have an access road off of Highway 2 so that people in the development and the community will be able to go, like not have to just pile onto Highway 2 because that's going to be a traffic issue as well. Like people aren't going to have to pull out onto Highway 2 to get to Costco probably. Like
Yeah.
It's going to...
interesting.
So anyway, so that's the what. The where, we talked a little bit about where it's actually at. This is kind of a Greenstone pet project. I mean, that is one thing that he, Jim Frank, and the Greenstone Corporation and his partners have done is to create kind of those small, walkable town center elements to their communities. So to go along with a mixed, so they're going to have a mix of single family homes, townhouses, small multifamily condo structures, which I know that there's some legislation right now that Greenstone is very much a proponent of, and I would say as the Realtors Association, we also are much proponent of it. Like eliminates some unnecessary regulation on building smaller condo
I thought
buildings.
you said regulation was
Unnecessary
good. Okay.
regulation is good when it has like common sense behind it.
Okay.
And then some
Even you're talking
apartment
about
buildings.
regulation is just like the size of the.
Yeah, there are certain things like there's a certain I can't remember what it's called, but I'll call it like an engineering approval that there's not even anybody in Eastern Washington that does it. So you have to fly somebody from Seattle to Spokane to approve it. And so anyway, it adds another 150,000 plus to any building. And if it's a small building, the argument is that it's not much different than building a really large house. It just has bigger walls in between the units.
Gotcha. Okay.
So anyway, there's also going to be an age-restricted community for people 55 and older, and the same thing. So it's going to be kind of an all-inclusive.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a long-term project.
Sure.
I mean, it's going to add 1,400 units, over the next 5 years. I guess.
Yeah. So a little bit of time before it helps with the old inventory problem.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway, I think that's all we got time for.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for being here. We appreciate your time, and we will see you next week. If you need anything, 509-62 House or social media. It's a thing. You can do it.
We'll
All right.
talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.